And keep it short. This is about King's Online and MOOCs. King's Online is relatively new. I'm not sure how many of you know about King's Online. We came together in about November. We used to be called the Central Unit of Distance Learning. Our acronym was CUDDLE. We were quite pleased to get rid of that. So in light of King's Online being a new entity almost, we've created a strategy for MOOCs. So today we'll talk a little bit about how we work with FutureLearn, how we work with the faculties, and what the strategy is for selecting MOOCs for King's, because it's, as Cal was just talking about, it is an expensive thing, but it's not something we want to lose. So we're trying to find a way to keep it within the King's strategy. King's Online falls within King's Futures, so we want to keep it within the King's Future strategy as well. So MOOCs are selected on 3 criteria according to our draft strategy. So the first is that it might act as a pathway to a full degree, and these can be either online degrees, which we're also building. They can also be on-campus degrees as well. The second is that the development of the MOOC will act as a primer for online learning. So we are developing quite a few other online programs within King's Online, from law to psychology, and that field is just growing as well. And we want, obviously, to generate revenue through the statements of participation and other FutureLearn products, because FutureLearn have a shop as well. I'm not sure if you knew that. So you can actually buy things through FutureLearn as well. We're still working on how that's going to work. We are actually working on a MOOC at the moment with the Royal Opera House and the Victoria and Albert Museum. It's going to be called the World of Opera, and we might be selling sort of MP3s and things like that through the FutureLearn shop. So we're sort of working on ways on generating revenue that way. We're taking it as read that all the MOOCs that we develop will be reputation enhancing for the college. I mean, we're just going to assume that for all the MOOCs that we develop. The MOOCs will be selected through a bidding process. So a proposal will be filled out, and that'll be looked over by the MOOC strategy group, which comes together 4 times a year and is made up of the director of King's Online, the business manager from King's Online, some academics who are very experienced in the world of MOOCs, and some other people from around the college as well. The vice principal for education as well is part of that group. King's Online will provide funds for the development of the MOOC. How much is discretionary to the strategy group, so we will provide the faculty with funds for additional staff or whatever might be needed. And as I said, that'll go through the strategy group, and they will decide how much is applicable to that particular development. King's Online will also help as a liaison between the faculty and marketing, because these are potentially a very powerful marketing tool for the university. So we want to make sure that we make the most of every opportunity that we can in terms of getting the MOOC out there, but also marketing the college and what we have available here as well. So how do King's Online and the faculty work together? So King's Online, well, the faculty actually will appoint a lead educator. This will be the point person within the faculty for the MOOC. This is usually the person who has the idea for the MOOC, the person who's most enthusiastic and really wants to get this going. So that person will act as a liaison between King's Online and other faculty staff and other content providers as well. They might be external experts. We've done the Internet of Things MOOC with an academic from informatics, but we also had various experts from Nesta and Ericsson and Sony, and all sorts of people were involved in that, and he was the point of contact with these people. King's Online will act as the liaison between the faculty and FutureLearn. This is just, we found that this works the best way because we often know the questions, we know the answers to some questions already, so we can go straight to the faculty with the answers. And it also prevents FutureLearn having to say the same thing to different faculties all over the college. It's sort of it works as a good funnel that way. The faculty is responsible for all the academic content. And King's Online provides an instructional designer, someone like Tom, to take that content and turn it into a MOOC. We also assign developers to the MOOC, which will develop the academic content into interactivity to go onto the platform. Paul Guillory, who's sitting in the corner over there, is part of King's Online, and he's been developing the MOOCs for us as well. So he worked on our Shakespeare print and performance MOOC, and he's also going to be working on the opera MOOC. So how many people does it take to make a MOOC? So first of all, it's the lead educator, we know who that is. The other content providers, so these can be internal or external. Partners, as I said, with the Shakespeare Print and Performance MOOC, we worked with the British Library and the Globe, and they both provided content for us. With, as I just said, for the Royal Opera House and the V&A are working with us in the Opera MOOC. An instructional designer, again, they help the lead educator turn their content into a MOOC. The faculty marketing officer, very important. We want to make sure that we have enough time to come up with a marketing strategy for the MOOC so that it ties in with enough things around the college as well. The developer, the video team who film and edit the videos. We have a full team within Kings Online who do all of that. We even have a studio. Then we have the project manager, which is what I do. So this is the person who liaises with all the different sort of stakeholders in the MOOC, and they help with the scheduling, with creating agreements, of memorandums of understanding, if there's any sort of legal aspects that need to be sorted out before the MOOC gets going. Basically just helps with everything that needs to be done. Then very importantly, the mentors. So these are people who are going to work on the MOOC when it goes live, when it's running. So these are the people who facilitate the conversations online. These can be PhD students, these can be the lead educator, these can be other contributors. But we have found that it really, really is a massively important role. On Shakespeare Print and Performance, we had some wonderful master's students who were on the MOOC with us, and I think it really helped because our fully participating stats and our social learning stats were well above average, about 10 or 15% above average, which was really impressive. How long does it take to make a MOOC? It's roughly a year from idea to delivery, and that gives us enough time for all the things to happen. So that includes getting it approved by the MOOC strategy group, getting FutureLearn approval, because one of the steps is to submit a proposal to FutureLearn, and they can in theory say no. They haven't yet, but they can. Find the best place in the FutureLearn calendar to put the MOOC. Identify who the contributors are going to be, who your lead educator is going to be. You probably already know who that's going to be at that stage, but who your partners are going to be. Identify a lead in either of the partners, if you're going to have partners. Agree terms of partnerships, because there's things to consider, sort of intellectual property and copyright and all sorts of things like that need to be considered. Design the course, of course. Identify and brief the mentors and obtain their commitment, because it is quite a commitment. Develop, run internal quality assurance, and then submit it to FutureLearn a month before the run of the course, because FutureLearn do their own QA. So they'll do QA and send it back to us with comments, and we'll make some changes and then send it back. FutureLearn are quite strict on that, which is good. It's helpful because it helps us learn as well when we develop. Who are FutureLearn? I'm not sure if you know much about them, but they are an offshoot of the Open University, currently funded by the Open University. They are a commercial organization. They currently have 94 partners, which include leading university and cultural universities from around the world. They've gone global, sort of the Far East and Australia and even South Africa. In 2016, they reached 4 million learners, which I think was quite a milestone for them, and it's good for us too. The platform is quite limited. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think with MOOCs it's probably best to keep it simple in most cases. And that's just a bullet point list of things that you can actually do on the platform. Now, you can get more interactive if you want to, but that just means you have to take it outside the platform, and from an instructional design point of view, that's not always very popular. And then, of course, there's plenty of information on the FutureLearn website, so if you wanted to find out a little bit more about them, just go to the website, there's plenty, and of course you can ask us as well. Natasha has told you a little bit about the MOOCs that we've done, but I'll just run through all of them. So we've done 7, 8 including a Mandarin version of Understanding Drugs and Addiction. So that was translated into Mandarin, which has run 3 times. 4th run coming in 2017, and then we've got the numbers there. Medicines adherence, causes of war, caring for people with psychosis and schizophrenia, the Internet of Things, which has its 4th run starting on Monday. Shakespeare Print and Performance, which was part of the Shakespeare 400 series and was very, very successful for its first run. And then supporting people living with long-term conditions. The MOOCs coming up so far, we've got the World of Opera, which is with, as I said, with the Victorian Albert Museum and the Royal Opera House. That's going to be a 4-week MOOC. And we're also developing something called a pre-U MOOC, which is part of the Plus Alliance. Now, the Plus Alliance is a partnership between Arizona State University and the University of New South Wales. So it's a collaboration between the 3 universities on research and learning. So we're going to create a pre-U MOOC, which will also introduce students to the 3 institutions as well as the Plus Alliance and what the goals of the Plus Alliance are.
Right. The 2 columns on the far right are for MOOCs that have just run once, so it gives them less exposure, but effectively we expect them to come up to similar numbers to the others once they get the chance to run again and again, because effectively we see our MOOCs, as you would expect, as something we can put out again and again once it has been developed. So it's typical of what you might hope for in distance learning, where the development costs are perhaps large, but the costs of rerunning make it worthwhile if you do produce a quality product in the first place. These are, of course, for registration, and once you drill down into them, as Natasha did, you find out more information about the involvement of different learner groups. For example, Natasha's own medicines adherence had a very high level of people buying certificates, which is, let's say, the most committed level of learner, because they've actually finished and they're prepared to pay. You can't really buy a certificate unless you've actually completed. These are the sort of the high numbers where people enroll, but in that sense, we assume you do know about the drop-off rates and things like that, but it just gives an overall level of the numbers who are interested in different courses and what courses we have done and what the results are. So we sort of assume that in the audience there's some of you who are thinking of how do I get a MOOC and that kind of thing, and what areas are interesting. So that just gives you an idea, an overview.